GoPro. If you're not using GoPro, you're not extreme enough. My name's Timmy Joe. Real review for you today for once. This is the Sony HDR-AS200 VR, if you include the handy dandy live view remote. It's a Sony action camera that did come out a little while ago, but they're still kicking around because no one's smart enough to buy these over GoPros. And we're going to go into depth about why I think that these definitely rival GoPros, and I actually prefer them, as well as my experience with having this guy's little brother compared to this one. I got this for a really good deal in the last couple days from Best Buy, an open box item. Even better price than I could imagine on it, considering it's about a $300 or $400 camera with the live view remote, as well as go over a few other things compared to the GoPro Hero 5 Black Edition I had for a little while there, and we're just going to go over Smash the Cans, talk all about it. So you stick around right after this intro, and we'll talk all about it. Sony, we'll call it the AS200. It's got a long name. Why can't they just say like Hero Black? Names on their action cameras are just weird product numbers, and if they put a really cool name on it like Hero, maybe they would sell a few more of them. So yeah, I got a really good deal on some Sony cameras in the last couple days, and I wanted to share my experience with, first off, this action camera, and then the actual camera I'm filming on right now, the Sony HX60V. Got this for a steal of a deal. I'll talk about that in the next episode though. But we'll get to the action camera here. I've always wanted this one, and then Sony's updated their line, and now they have the FDRX3000. Like, why can't they call that one the Steady Cam or something? And then they have the AS300, and those are the ones I think they're still manufacturing. They whittled them down to 2, when for a while Sony had like 4 or 5 of them in their lineup. But this one falls, this is the top of the line before the 4K came out, the X1000V. And this has GPS, it has steady shot built in, it has all the bells and whistles, as well as it connects to like all of their most of their cameras, the live view remote to better control it. So where does this come in compared to a GoPro? We'll say a Hero 4 is where this lines up with silver 1080p edition, before 4K was all the rage. Well, I think that this is a better value, and definitely actually has a little bit better image quality compared to the GoPros of the time. But it definitely it has its ups and its downs, because if you'll notice, there's no LCD screen on this like most GoPros have had for a while. You're kind of roped into getting, you know, the version that comes with this thing. Otherwise, you're using a very clunky interface. We'll talk about that in a second, but I just want to go over, uses these batteries that every Sony product under the sun uses, and it gets really good battery life. These are 1240 milliamp hour batteries, so you can't go wrong with them. I had the little brother to this, the AZ1 or AZ1, which is basically the same idea, and it still shot 1080p 60, but it was like almost half the size. Didn't have as big an LCD, and it didn't have GPS and a few other options, and I broke it when I fell on my pinky finger. I was actually reaching for the camera as I fell, and that's why I broke my pinky. Terrible time. But she's all healed up now, and unfortunately the camera's lens was just, it had a huge scratch across the edge of it, and it made the video unusable. And I tried to repair it and put another lens in it, and I ended up just scrapping the whole thing and throwing it out. It used these smaller batteries, and it still got ridiculously good battery life. So I can only imagine if you turn the GPS and Wi-Fi up on this, if you really wanted to get you know, some decent time, you get well over 2 hours, 2.5 hours of HD video recording with this thing. I have had the chance to use this, you know, not maybe in action sports practice, but I went and took a lot of test videos. I'll show you in a a second. But I'm really liking this. Number one thing I want to talk about this compared to GoPro, it has built-in image stabilization, and even the newest 4K, the FDR-AS200 and AS200 from Sony have even better built-in optical image stabilization. This little puppy does a real treat. If you're walking around with it, even in your hand like this, you don't get that walking jitter at all. It's really good for that. I can only imagine how good the newest ones are with even better optical image stabilization. But GoPros don't have any of that. And you know that if you have a GoPro. They have software image stabilization, but not built-in optical image stabilization. So when you do use the stabilization in a GoPro, it's doing it in software. It's downgrading the quality in order to do it, as well as you can't do it at full resolution. You usually have to downgrade to like 2K in the GoPro Hero, the newest one, the 5, and I think in the other one you had to go downgrade to 1080p. So I mean, this is 1080p 60, but it shoots really good image stabilization video. So I'll show you here. I had it on my car, and you can see the front of my car here is bouncing up and down like crazy, and this is suction cupped to my window. So if it's suction cupped to like the little quarter window here, my car is bouncing like this, and you can't really tell that the camera is bouncing, but you can see my hood go up and down. So I thought that was really good. As well as I'm walking here, it looks really decent. Sony does really good optical image stabilization, that is for sure. Some other features that this thing has, is it does have a lack of LCD screen, so you got to use this thing for to change most of the settings easily, but you can access it through these 3 buttons it's got on here, and that's the way GoPros were for a long time. But this has 2 different shooting modes for the way it records. It does record with the AVC HD codec, which is a high bitrate codec, and then there's an MP4 codec that's less. If you're going to shoot in the higher one, you definitely need XC memory cards, the higher speed micro SD cards, and I got a 64 gigabyte Elite one here that's working just fine for that. Same thing with like the 4K. In most, you need the higher speed. You can't just throw any SD card in this to get it to work, but you can with the lower settings, the MP4. But you can get 240 frames a second at 720p on this thing. So if you'll see here, here's me starting my snowblower, puffing some crazy smoke while I got the choke turned too low, and or too high, I should say. And here's me actually snowblowing, and you see me blasting, and there's a real degradation in quality here, but it's really getting some really decent frame rates for slow video here. So really liked the results from that. And if you don't need that slow, 128 there's a 120 option that gives you 720p that probably will look a little bit better. It does come with waterproof housing. You don't need it. This thing is splash proof unless you're really diving into the water or it's like an extreme rainstorm. This thing says it's splash proof. It has a fairly heavy duty rubber ring around the edges of the battery case and stuff like that. So that GoPro went completely you don't need the housing at all with the Hero 5, and that really screwed up the sound on it from what we know. Actually, I had one and I hated the sound I was getting out of it, and I've seen some comparison tests on the on YouTube here just showing that the GoPro Hero 5 has really bad mics in it, when that was one of the features they were touting as like it has 3 microphones and switches between all of them, but because of that waterproofing built in, it never gets as good as the stereo mics on this. And this is splash proof, but you can't submerge it. But in the times you do want to submerge it, they give you the full-on waterproof housing. And then the reason why I say you don't need the waterproof housing ever is they made it so they include this in the box. This is a little tripod mount, and that's amazing. I love using tripod accessories, normal camera accessories. I have a suction cup that just fits right into the 1/4-inch mount. I have a tripod. I put this on a tripod. I have a couple of clamps that have that input on it. So I'm not worrying about these they do have their own proprietary mounts for this stuff with the 3M tape that you could really use if you wanted to put this thing on a boat or something, or really secure it well to a bike. But it's completely unnecessary in my opinion. And with a GoPro, you always need to go buy an extra adapter to put the little 2-prong thing down to a 1/4 inch input. So I really like a lot of stuff about this, but there is no Sony action camera with a built-in LCD. You always have to go with the externals, so that might be a deal breaker for you. What I like about the live view remotes is you can put this on your wrist, put this on your head, and always have, be able to frame stuff. Or if you're skiing, you have the control to turn the camera on and off right from your wrist and see if it's still recording. So there's trade-offs and there is pros and cons with the Sony, but where it really shines, I think, is this has just tremendous sharp video. And I think it's even sharper than, it's definitely sharper than my cell phone, which is saying something. I really love my Galaxy S6 Edge Plus, has super good video on it, and I kind of gauge that it's got to have at least better video than that. This has better video quality, although it's fisheye, than my cell phone for sure. It has some pretty decent low light capabilities as well, where the point and shoot I'm shooting on right now, I'm not so sure about that, and we'll talk about that in the next episode. But obviously I am just ranting and raving about how much I love this thing. It has really good video. I'm going to show you some pictures and some video here over some music, just so you get a real idea of the quality of video and images that come out of this, and then we'll come back and we'll say goodbye. I love these Sony action cameras. I have the AZ1, and this is just it introduces GPS on top of that and a few other features, some looping features, and I can't say enough good things about the Sony AS200 V. If you could pick one up for a good price like I did, it says $199 here. I actually got this for $174.99, so about half price of a brand new one, even still. So I'm super happy with that. I'll be back with another episode tomorrow featuring the Sony HX60, and talk a little bit about where point and shoots are at these days, and how you got to kind of spend a lot of money to get any kind of good quality out of them these days. But it is a little bit of a super zoom. We'll talk about that in the next episode. My name is Timmy Joe. You can always ask questions about these Sony cameras. I will answer them in the comments below, and watch Timmy Joe on Instagram and Twitter. Stay tuned for another episode tomorrow, or maybe the next day, and thank you very much for watching.